Hold
All
on.
right. All right.
Okay.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Oversight, the South County Senior, to order. We have one item on our agenda, and that is to listen to what our um, design team has to say about the design, which they just emailed us just now.
So I'll jump
Yeah,
in.
yeah. Please jump in.
um, so last we met, there was a little bit of a miscommunication. We got off track a little bit. We looked at some options that wasn't really what the Board of Oversight was looking for. So we kind of went back to the drawing board, um, took a few steps back, looked at the medium priority list, medium and the high priority list, which gave us about a 15,000 square foot building. We thought that for this discussion, that it would make more sense to look at this, focus more on the site aspect of how the building and the targeted parking fits. And then once we come to some consensus, and in terms of how the site lays out and the different options, then we can start to look at more floor plan development options, which we can study in the next meeting that we all have and start to dive into the plan. So, Brian, why don't you share your screen? We looked at a few different options for both Whately and for the Deerfield sites, and some you've seen a little bit in the last meeting. Some are completely different ideas. The point was to show you guys kind of a gamut of, different options in terms of at Deerfield, we looked at a single story building, a two-story building. What would it be like to keep the ball field and lose the ball field? At Whately, what would it look like if we had all green space in the back and all the parking in the front versus, parking in the back and the front? Just look at different options and show you guys how things fit and start to have a discussion on mainly the site piece. And then, like I said, the goal here would be to hone in on a couple of different options so that we can start to show you guys some floor plan options that align with how the building is going to land on the site. Okay. So Brian, why don't you jump in and you can go from there.
Perfect. Thanks. So just to orient everybody at Deerfield, I think you're all pretty aware of this property, but a couple of the surrounding elements are highlighted. I believe we talked about it last time, but the 1888 building has its own improvements kind of slotted for what that could look like. So we're just showing that as we develop this piece. So what is shown here, this table kind of up in the corner is reoccurring on all of these options and kind of sets the framework for what we're working against. So you could see that this building is a two-story facility that gets us to the 15,000 square feet. We have an entrance here on Conway that gives us a drop off, and we're showing an additional 73 spaces, which would be assigned for the senior center, and that is north of the blue kind of dashed line in here. This is kind of previously assigned parking in a way. It's for the police. It's for 1888. We're showing the library. So we kind of just wanted to isolate that and show you guys where we landed as far as our target parking numbers that we like to see for a senior center this size.
And Brian, that's based on 7 square feet, or I'm sorry, 7 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet is kind of the number that we like to use from our past experience. So that's how we're getting to the targeted number that's up in the right-hand corner there.
Okay. So when you see, so we kind of have a kind of easy kind of access right around here. We preserve most of the green area on the top side where the baseball field is, but that would need to be relocated in this scenario just to kind of fit spatially on here. The next option, I'll just toggle really quickly. We try to achieve our target parking number that we feel like is appropriate for this. So now in this option, we kind of overtake a little bit more of the ball field. Further over there allows more green space for senior center and other activities. But at least in this, what you're seeing on the screen allows us to hit the target parking that we feel like this senior center would demand. I'm going to keep going. So feel free to stop me if you have any questions, but we'll flip through at least all the ones on Deerfield at first. So this opportunity came up when we feel like we were imposing on the field itself in a major way anyway. We had seen other concepts in some other programs where the ball field gets relocated or things go away. So we wanted to explore the option of putting a senior center kind of on the ball field, and what would the parking do, and how would that kind of change this whole really campus. So you could see how that's kind of laying out. We have a kind of core of green space up in this area. We feel like even folks that are parking towards the perimeter, you could see lightly dashed on here. We call out for a 300-foot perimeter from the front door. That's what we're striving for proximity of users of the senior center walking into the front door. So there's nice sidewalks along each access. You can get out of your car, walk on to sidewalks, and get to the front door. We feel like this concept ties pretty well together with the library. Ties pretty well with the 1888 building. And you can see police, which remains there. We have
Brian, do me a quick favor and go back one slide.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. So the first two slides you saw was more or less the same footprint you guys saw last time, which was roughly 10,000 square feet.
Right.
The idea was we would keep that footprint, but have to add a second level in some way, shape, or form to the building to, not increase the footprint, which would, eat away at parking, which we are sensitive to. Right. So we wanted to say, all right, 2/3 of the space would have a double story space above it. So, where that dashed line is roughly 2/3. The other space would be, the large multi-purpose room space, which would need, some height to go along with the size of the space. So with the options that we're showing now, taking over the ball field, which I already understand that losing green space in the middle of the town is not desirable. What we wanted to show was if a 2-story option was a non-starter with Jennifer, because we understand that introduces a whole, litany of staffing issues. We wanted to at least show what the impact of putting a single-story building and, how much space it takes, what that would look like on the site. So that was why we explored it, fully understanding that losing all that green space is nowhere near optimal, but at least to show the impact of what that size of a building and the parking does. So this option, when you see 1 story in the next few options, they're all based around a single story, again, to just start the dialogue of single story versus 2-story with Jennifer mainly, and understand, Jennifer, how you would see that working. But we'll keep going through these options and we can double back after we go through the next couple.
Yeah. Is there okay to ask another question at this point?
Sure.
Or, I want to make sure I understand the information in the little table with the parking. I understand about the target is 1 story and the picture is either 1 story or 2-story, depending on which page you're looking at. When it says existing parking, and I'm wondering, because when I look at that very first one, there's very, very little parking there. And so maybe it's actually, can you tell me more about what you mean by existing compared to other parking? Other parking, it says library and 1888 building. I assume it's outside of those dotted line boundaries. And then the number that's in like the orange box, which is like 73 on one of them, it's 100 on another one. And that would be like all these new parking places here. But is that you've gained 14 or you've gained 100, and I don't know where the 86 is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
not a coherent question, but I know you'll give me a really
I know what you're asking. I know what you're asking. And it might not even be that clear of an answer. So 86 existing. So
yeah.
This
So like
is where we get 86.
Which haven't been actually put in yet.
That's right. I
Correct.
just felt like,
But will be planned.
Right.
yeah, since it
Um,
was planned and it really seemed like it was moving forward. That I believe is what we're getting there.
Okay, will you put that circle back up? That's like around buildings D and C and B, basically, right?
Yeah, and
That
I'm
you
just
had there.
quickly.
Yeah.
The more I'm
Yeah.
looking back at this slide, I feel like this campus, this is the campus. This entire what we're looking at has 86 spaces.
So the 86 spaces includes what's already at the library in the 1888 building.
That's
But
correct. So in a
so-
scenario,
because there's some scenario where they're going to gain one between those buildings.
yeah.
Maybe.
So in a scenario like this, we are basically plus 100 spaces.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm not worried about the difference between 86 and 87 because there's so
That's
many
fair.
other changes going on
Right.
that okay. So the 86 and 87 are essentially what's there and rearranged in some sense because of other work that's going on. And then the green number is additional. So with the 100, you're essentially doubling the amount of parking on the whole campus there.
Yes.
So when you count it, yeah, you're counting that stuff that's I'd say northwest of that black dotted line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, good. Good. Because that makes sense to me.
Yep.
But I
Yeah,
didn't
you nailed it.
understand the difference between the 86 and the 87. And now I think I do.
And Joyce, that target of 100 is based on, as Chris said,
Yeah.
seven parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of senior center building.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
And then so if I look back at the two-story one. Okay, so keeping the ball field costs us 25 parking places-ish.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody new. I'm not sure you.
Brian.
Oh.
Thank you,
okay.
Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. And then unmute if you have to talk. Sorry.
Sharing an
You know,
office.
a lot
Yeah.
of it's busy. It's busy here this
Yeah.
afternoon.
No worries.
Two floor option. We kind of stopped around here, but again, to Chris's point, which I didn't point out, this is a single story senior center in this option. The second version of this was just an alternative layout and how things are situated. Again, it's more to gain your feedback, gain your thoughts on certain things, you know, as we're laying things out in the ball field area. Just any preference that you guys see.
Well,
But again,
you know, one other thing on, you know, from my standpoint is there's probably some more finagling with something like this that can happen around the police station. We have that secondary access drive, you know,
Right.
going around the west side of the police station. You know, do we need that? Can we gain more green space back? You know, I know there's other complicating factors on that option specifically because the generator is all the way over there. I know we have electric charging stations over there. So there's definitely some logistical things. But again, this was more just to start talking concept, diagrammatic, how are the pieces and parts fitting, you know, when you start to look at things in terms of parking spaces and walkways and building footprint and, you know, the other challenges we can kind of work through as we develop and detail things. So I think those are all your options at Deerfield, right, Brian?
that's right.
Are the buildings actually drawn to scale? Because the two-story building looks almost as big as the one-story building. Or is that just an optical illusion?
It's probably a gray optical illusion. You know, the gray maybe blends in with the parking a little bit, but you could see the building in those previous concepts stops about right here.
And you're adding about a third of that. Yeah.
And we add it right there. So this portion,
Oh, so it's not 2 stories for the whole, it's 2
Correct.
stories for one portion of it.
Correct.
So
That's
it's
right.
not say like a 7,500 square foot building that's 2 stories the whole way around. It's
Right.
one portion of it is, okay.
And, you know,
That makes more sense. That should only be about a third bigger
Right.
than with that way.
right, exactly.
Okay.
And typically, you know, like I was saying earlier, typically we do the 1/3, 2/3 thing. You know, 2/3 is a 2-story space, 1/3 is a single story, and that 1/3 is the large space to give you the more. Could we shrink the footprint a little bit and bring the whole second story up higher so every first floor space is a little bit bigger and squeeze the footprint down? You know, we could look at that. We, you know, it costs a little bit more money because you're building more exterior wall and whatnot. But
Right.
you know, I think we can work with that and start to fine tune that as we get a little bit further into things. But for all intents and purposes, this is kind of the rough footprint that we were playing with for this option.
Brian, what if you went with or Chris and Brian,
Yeah.
just as you're showing the partial second story, couldn't you
Mhm.
use the other half or the other roof to do like a green space because we don't have a lot of it on the lower level?
Yep.
I don't know what that would add to the cost or, you know, just to expand because gardening and stuff like that is something that we've looked at, you know, to grow, have the seniors do some of that, but to grow our own stuff so we can have a kitchen as well to help
Yeah,
reduce.
deck space.
So.
Yes, you absolutely could. It adds significant amount of cost to the project, but you know,
Okay.
green roofs are awesome. I advocate for them whenever we can afford it. And this would be a really good, especially if we're taking away so much green space, it'd be a good, you know, case for a green roof. So definitely
Yeah,
something to consider.
I wasn't sure what the cost would be for that, so I understand. Yeah, I'm not opposed to doing it 2 levels. I think what I was opposed to when we were looking at the previous plan was doing something all the way over at the church space and going back and forth between 2 buildings that weren't in the same thing, because running up a set of stairs or taking an elevator is faster than going across and having it, you know, in multiple buildings. So
Sure.
you can reach the goal with having staff in, you know, even one staff in one building on 2 floors, because you can just go up and down and check in with folks.
Yep.
So I think, you know, that was my issue, was having it spread across too far because you're not gonna be able to reach it. Or, you know, be in 2 buildings at once, kind of a deal.
Yeah, 2 stories can be successful. You know, we've seen it work in the past. Some directors have really visceral reactions against it. We just talked to senior center director in Amherst that said, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. Don't have the staff for it. And we understood all of our concerns and we shifted gears. So, you know, before we went ahead and actually designed a whole 2-story floor plan, we wanted to make sure that, you know, we were on the same page and that you found value in at least studying it, you know, in that way. So that's good to hear.
What is Hamden doing? Because I know that you built the original space with Becky and now you guys are going into expand. So are they doing their addition as a second floor, or are they doing it as an expansion?
So the proposed was just an expansion, you know, horizontally. So it's an extension of their space, not going vertically. But the town multiple times now this past year has voted it down.
Okay.
It was too big their first go around. We shrunk it, got it to within what we thought was within their expectations, and they voted it down even worse the second time. So the town, just Hamden specifically, didn't have the appetite for it. But the proposed plan, which was getting them to about 12,000 square feet from where they are now, which is about 7,000 square feet, was just going kind of adding off the back of the building, upgrading a lot of their, you know, restroom facilities that are, you know, 30 years old that weren't accessible and whatnot. So that was what was going on over there.
Yeah, they also have a smaller senior population compared to the 3 of ours combined. So you know, I can understand the difference. Because one of the, you know, I had mentioned this before, and the needs assessment study that we've had done, we're only going to increase in our number of folks who are 60 and older. So And I know the towns aren't gonna wanna revisit this in the future.
Right.
To get it going now, so this is it for Deerfield, you're gonna go to Whately now?
Yeah, I mean, what's the general temperature on annihilating the ball field altogether? I mean, it seems like it's a bummer for this nice green space in the middle of the town, but you guys have a better sense than we would.
It would be difficult. My only thought was that we have that other ball field next to the elementary school that doesn't get used a lot and could kind of take the place of it. But you're losing a kind of a central place where everybody comes to town hall, and it's a field, and they play soccer on it, and they play, they do a lot on that field, and it is right in the center. And I know there has been discussion about, senior housing on that field, and so that it's a topic. I don't know how it would go over, but I understand parking is a concern, and it makes sense that if you're gonna do it, I guess this one allows at least to keep the ball field, would have to reorient it, from the way it is right now, but.
Right.
You could keep the square footage of the place that we have now. I know our square footage is kind of sideways, right? It's 90 degrees to that our current kind of building, right? We don't go as far. Like you took this square footage and kind of turned it sideways, right? Is our current, I can't remember what our current square footage is, right?
Yeah, it sticks a little bit. The current square footage is similar, but it sticks more towards the west northwest.
Yes,
Yeah. So we were trying to squeeze it to get that nice drop off.
Yes, exactly.
On the passenger side. So that's why we kind of turned it a little bit to get the parking and the drop off.
Right. It sounds like that option would be probably most favorable.
Yeah.
We're gonna take down that building and put something else there and still keep a ball field where you have a green space where we do concerts, all kinds of stuff happens out there, so.
Well, and the other thing to consider for this site is, I know we have the suboptimal provided parking of 73 compared to the 100, but there is overflow for large activities.
There is
a lot more shared parking that could happen. I don't know how what the temperature would be for sharing a lot of parking, especially that far away for the senior center, but
right.
Maybe that's the compromise that needs to be made is, if people want to park on the site. We got how many spots in the front there, Brian? The police station.
We got 27 on this half across from the drop off. We have another 46 next to the ball field.
Yeah.
There's areas like this, which are like a question mark in my mind, just of like, could there technically be some more spaces there, but you'd probably get some pushback from police operations.
Mainly that's gonna be police, and their concern is they're gonna have to try and figure out. They're gonna want in and out access, and they generally loop the building now, but I don't know how that would work. We'd really have to talk to Chief and see what he thinks about that.
One thing we were thinking was, could we eliminate talking about going backwards, eliminating a couple of parking spaces and just connecting that back access area for the police to the parking lot, right where,
right.
Would that be a simple solution to that? But again, you're kind of going backwards. We're taking spaces away.
Yeah.
But, something to consider.
I certainly also understand, the issue of keeping the ball field versus losing the ball field. I think one of the other considerations thinking into the future is this scheme landlocks your building.
Yeah.
Whereas putting the building back on the ball fields, it gives you the opportunity for future expansion. If you decided you needed another 2,500 square feet or something, whatever that might be, where once you've landlocked the building, you're really tied into it without big changes to the parking lot design. And then when you take away the parking, you want to at least add that much more, if not more, if you were trying to add on to the building.
Right.
Well, in that area though, Doug, while I hear your concern about that piece, in the back portion, you've got the Bloody Brook behind there, so you've also got to watch your water parameters and all of the wetland stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't think we would be able to even expand unless we went up.
If you're gonna lose the ball field anyway, might as well do the last one.
Right.
This next one.
I
Expand.
agree.
Yeah.
Is that
Is this
something
one
that
here
they're
you're talking
going
about?
with?
If you were gonna
This-
lose the ball,
Yeah, I
field,
mean,
this
if
is,
you're gonna lose the ball
Right.
field anyway, I would go with this parking.
This
spot.
one, if you're gonna lose a ball field, I would agree. This one has the most potential for,
Yeah.
creating a large consolidated green space while having a
Yeah.
little bit of expansion, and you have kind of the senior centers here, police departments here, like you all of a sudden things aren't as intertwined as they were before.
Yeah.
Better
Right.
better shared parking with, the
Mhm.
library. Because you're
Yep.
closer, things like that. There's definitely more flexibility if you're gonna lose a ball field in this option, in my opinion.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah, I was thinking similarly that what I like about the ones where the one where we keep the ball field is essentially the only green space. So outdoor activities for the senior center are going to be pretty limited. But if you lose the ball field, then there's a lot of different options for where the green space can be. It can be kind of distributed through the parking lot and with some other little pockets. It could be this one that where you were just showing had kind of the most green space that was concentrated, but
Right.
the one you had just had there also had like a lot of just like there's a bunch of shady trees here and
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of more little pocket parks in a way, I suppose, and more shaded parking, which people also appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so I mean, not being a resident of Deerfield, I don't know what the temperature is, but I know if I'd asked about any particular ball field in Whately, that our rec commission would have a strong opinion about it.
Yep.
And there were some ball fields that they didn't really care that much about because nobody wanted to use them. And if
Right.
you've got a ball field that over the school, nobody wants to use that, there's probably a reason. So if you were to try to go for getting rid of this ball field, you'd have to sort of factor in the cost of improving the other ball field to be one that people would want to use. Does that make sense to you, Trevor?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
The
good
other
points.
thing about where the other building was right next to the police department, I believe in the last designs you showed, there would be no windows on that side that adjacent, and that would cut down on a lot of natural light, which I really am in favor of.
You can put windows in, I mean, that's what we had, it's just, he was thinking, do we wanna look out in the parking lot, but
Yeah,
certainly can drop them in.
Not high up, but there's.
Yeah.
first story,
Yeah.
like,
yeah, but if the back part is the second
Is the
floor,
two
that's
story
not a
one.
problem, it's just the
Right.
lower one, it's right there, he's looking at,
Mhm.
and
And we could probably be strategic about what we put up against the police station on the lower level, and try to
Yeah.
limit it as much as possible. But you're right, Jennifer, there's definitely going to be, there's going to have to be most likely one space that would like glazing that's not going to get it. So,
Yeah, yeah,
that's my only
Yeah.
thought. That's why I
Yeah.
do like, in
Yeah.
different other positions, but I
Makes
don't
sense.
know what the temperature is gonna be about, getting rid of the ball field, because I don't know what the campus plan is, I haven't paid attention if you guys are expanding or going in the back there at all.
I have an opinion, but I don't know what everybody else's opinion. I think that ball field needs to stay.
yeah,
Well, I do like, they do have community concerts there in the summer, so that would take away a community space. And there is no park in Deerfield to go to. There is nothing other than, on the other side of elementary school, but
yeah,
there's really nothing for the community to gather at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Can you build a senior center
Yeah.
there? Why? Same reasons.
Well, thanks for showing us all these things we can't have.
right.
Maybe Whately now and see what we got there.
yeah, let's go to Whately.
So in general, you'll see if they just didn't build this building on a 45-degree angle, you would think a lot of
Yes.
this parking would solve itself. But
Yeah.
in this option where we get to the 15,000 square foot program space, we still allow for what you saw last time. I believe last time we just were a little bit under parked. So now going up in our square footage, we want to target, it is the same 100, but accounting for a couple extra spaces for existing facilities in this building. But we're still able to maintain a nice entry loop and drop off to the front door. You'll just see these kind of extra wings and parking areas that we feel like could get utilized by either staff or just, overflow larger events that still would be able to provide good front door access. But again, this just shows you kind of how parking would situate with this building expansion. And
So
You know,
on
I-
this one, the existing parking is 72. The new layout increases it by 133, no, so by 33 and brings it up to 110.
Right.
So it's not that we end up with 182 spots here. We end up with 110.
that's right.
Okay.
But still in the same, same framework as
Right.
the last
Yeah,
one.
yeah. No, it's just because in Deerfield you had to add the 100 to the 86 or the 87.
For the
That's right.
campus, right?
Right.
Now we're adding 100 to basically we're saying about 10
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah. So the number in green is the total, not the senior center itself. Right.
Yeah.
That's
And I
right.
think and I think based on this, we can probably clean those charts up for future to help
Yeah.
explain them a little bit better.
Yep.
Okay. No, just I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying there.
Yep.
Because it's not unreasonable the way you've got it. I just want to make sure that I've understood it.
And this one, like Brian was saying, that building being on a 45 and we have all these odd triangular spaces, it really leads to a fairly inefficient design. And, we see all those little areas in the bottom left that are green space. That's like, oh, can we fit more parking in there? It just doesn't quite work.
Yeah, but we could put some picnic tables in there. We could
Yeah.
put a few more trees in there. We could
Exactly. Right. It's not a bad thing to have more green space, but the only downside to this option is you do have that kind of weird wing towards the north that could be used for staff parking. So it's not horrible, but that would be great is if that whole north area was just green space and you weren't kind of locking yourself in with parking and building all around you. Can we landscape it in such a way where it feels a little bit better? Definitely. But that's the downside to having to throw a remote parking area over there is you definitely, reduce the quality of that green space that you have.
Yeah.
When you did the presentation for the open house for the community in October, you had different design type of a situation. Was that with a lower square footage for the building, or was it just a different layout? Because it was like, you came around from the top where it says Sandy Lane there, and you had like a path that came down around the side, or it was just like the building felt different down here where your pen is now. It was like a little different there.
We did a smaller footprint, didn't we, Chris?
I think this is going back 2 sets where you built more out into what's green space here, I think.
Yeah. There were some options, but the green space shifts a little bit. So maybe there was more green space on the right, but less up top there. So this was, we can certainly figure out where that additional building space goes, but the parking still is, more or less would need to be split like we're showing it here. I don't think we were showing the parking on the previous option because we were still, talking about exact needs for everything, building and parking and whatnot. So,
Okay.
Can you explain what this 15,000 square foot is again, just for others who haven't seen?
Sure.
This is kind of bringing up a floor, because you remember there's a dock here. There's a dock at this end of the building. I think what they're doing is kind of planning to bring
Yeah.
everything up level, right?
So it's all.
Yes.
I believe so.
Coming up to the level of what the dock is at.
Yeah.
right. So what might be helpful is even though this is a smaller footprint than what we wanted, I'll pull up the presentation we had from last time.
Yeah,
And I'll just walk through the diagram. Give me 1 second. Perfect.
Can you share it?
Yep, I'm just trying to get there.
Oh,
think
I wasn't sure if it was giving you the ability or not, say, put it in multiple folks, so.
Looks like
Is
it's
that-
working.
Is that just infilled or is there useful space there at all?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Under that main large room where you're bringing everything up, is it just kind of infill and there's nothing, I mean, it would only be crawl space, right? There isn't enough. There's
Yeah,
no
it's
edge.
like 2.5 feet, from
Right.
the slab. So there's not really anything, we'd build it up on with metal studs or something like that, probably, and pour a new slab on top of it. So it really wouldn't be anything useful.
Okay.
But we've
Curious.
done, we've done it before. We've infilled spaces before.
Yeah,
So I don't think it'd be insanely difficult. I think it's the only logistical thing to do to not have to add a lift or, more stairs or a ramp. It seems
Right.
to work, especially with where the drop off's going to go.
yeah,
With something like this. So in the plan that we're or the footprint that we're currently showing for the 15,000 square feet, we would be looking at doing something like, something like this. We would just add
the
a little bit off the side and the back, depending on how things, shake out. But that's kind of where we would want to grow. And we would really like to keep this lobby area that kind of traverses through the building, so that if this parking lot that ends up in the back needs to be for seniors, there might be, easy access through there. If somebody walks in the back door, they can see the reception. If people want to use the outdoor space, it's easily accessed as you're walking through the building. I think the layout would be pretty similar to this. We'd want spaces over here and over here to the left of this central spine here, but like I said, the space would want to grow to the up and to the right of what you're looking at here on the screen.
I just want to share, Dan has joined us.
Oh, hey, Dan.
Hey,
Hey, Dan.
Dan.
So Brian, you want to pull back up the site plans and we can talk more about it?
Oh,
Thank
I see. Yep. Okay.
And yeah, that whole to the drive entry there, everything to the left is graded up pretty high. There's a pretty steep grade coming down. So, all that space is not really terribly usable.
Yeah,
That was my question. If you put parking on the
yeah.
inside.
Yeah, you need little elevator parking things.
That's right.
So those are, some options that talk about the target, right? The ideal situation for the building that fits the program that we've identified as desired, with the parking that's associated with it and the different amenities, to varying degrees of success with outdoor space and whatnot. Both identify the drop off, both we feel like has safe pedestrian access, walkways at every single parking space, perpendicular to the building in most cases. Where there's not, we provided easy access from parking to the front door. So, those are kind of the things that we wanted to get some feedback on and see if there's some here that we preferred, that we wanted to hone in a little bit further on. If we have any other questions or any other ideas that might have popped up that of, stuff that we looked at.
I'm just thinking of emergency stuff. Would it be beneficial to make an entryway towards the bottom corner somewhere? So that way not everything is going out towards Sandy Lane. I don't know what the grading is on the back part to Long Plain and up. I'm just thinking, emergency issues,
Mhm.
not that plan on them, but that's why they're emergency.
That's it, because it slopes back down, right, Brian? So you could probably get a connection there.
Believe it or not, under this arrow, there's this dirt path that you see people pull off. And this is
Yeah.
actually close to on grade to what would be this property line over
Huh.
here.
It'll be a pretty
So-
simple connection.
It's close. Yeah, it's a little uphill, but it's close.
Yeah, that's just a thought, because if we ever have to get everybody out of there for whatever reason. Or if an
Right.
ambulance needs to come in and there's regular traffic or something that's blocking.
We lose a
Yeah.
couple spots there, but
Yeah,
um. Maybe you can shift them over a little. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good,
Because
that's a
that
good
would
thought.
be- It would be better access there in the back to go right to the front.
Mm.
What about going down that dirt path? But
not
it looks like the property line goes a little
Jogs in.
awkward down there,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, just, I'm just thinking if you've gotta get people in and out and you've got only one entrance and exit point, just might be good. And that's what I was also thinking when you were showing the interior on the other space about keeping that, the lobby area vestibule connected all the way down. I assume they're gonna have exit doors in the back there.
Yes, yes. Definitely.
Okay. Um,
So, yeah, I think I'm good with this kind of layout right now. I'm good with keeping the ball field in Deerfield and doing a half, a story and a half, or however that worked, to keep the
Mhm.
footprint smaller. And then I'm super curious about what needs to be in there, what we're cutting out, really, I guess, maybe the next meeting, like, what does the floor plan look like, and what are we?
Yep.
Why does it need to be 15,000 square feet truly, or does it, what do we give up if we go to 10? What are those, really, what is what we're giving up or what we really need? Because we always need space, anytime we do a function, the Thanksgiving coming up is
Yeah.
packed already.
we had to cut off attendance for the Friendsgiving. It's at the Polish Club, and in order to fit people in there comfortably, we had to cut it at 102, and because they have 120,
I wonder what
max
square
capacity,
footage they have. for
but
that
it's so
room.
tight.
I know, I'm just curious what their square footage is and what does that look like in our space, and then what else do we have to fit in there that are musts, what could we get away from?
Well, I think one of the pieces that the other one had, where we parsed it down to, I think it was it 10 or 11,000 square feet when you did the footprint?
It was
for-
just under, 11,000 when we were looking at the Deerfield site.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to have, like, you have the divider going through half part of the
Right.
room. The kitchen would have only been 500 square
Yeah,
feet, and
really
with what we're
tiny.
doing for the amount of people that we service there on regular, 500 square feet is too small for what we need for, kitchen, because we need commercial grade appliances in order to be able to, produce what we have. And the congregate meals, is something that people miss, and we could do those daily with Life Path, because that they provide the food through their catering through
It's,
system,
Yeah.
so.
for me, it's just looking at that
Yeah.
square footage, what truly, how do you run? What are our wants, what are our specific needs, those
Yeah,
gotta haves, and then what does that leave, and then fit everything else in, and what are the costs, really?
and that was where our high and medium needs was the 15,000 square feet. We cut
And it's
off
really
the
explaining
low,
what
yeah,
that means.
Yep.
Why is that a real need?
and I'm working
Yeah,
on.
so I think to your point, Trevor, let us,
Yeah.
add some context to these options here. I think I heard you loud and clear in terms of the site options that seem most viable. I think that's
Yeah.
reasonable. Keeping the ball field sounds like a reasonable, direction to move forward with. I know we're gonna be a
Yeah.
little short on parking, but I think
Right.
we just kind of
We'll find a way.
lean on the fact that there's more parking on site and the campus, and the campus has the optimal amount of parking for the building, even though it's
Yeah.
shared. I think we lean on
Right.
that fact as a positive.
Yeah.
You can look at what 15,000 square feet looks like in reality, like how many desks, how many tables, how many chairs can fit, and we can start to really get into brass tacks on, well, but if we did shrink this, what does it look like? What are you sacrificing? We can start to have those conversations, and we can pull up that old
Yeah.
point that we had at 11,000 square feet and start to compare and say, all right, well, you had this here. What does that mean? You have this here. What does that mean? And we can start that dialogue.
And just having the ability to explain to the public
Exactly.
why this is the number it is here, and what we give up if we do this, what the cost differences are, kind of just explaining to the residents what the needs are, and then they can decide whether they want them or not.
Right. And what we can do at the end, if we decide ultimately to propose a 15,000 square foot building with a 100 parking spaces, we can have, we'll have our estimators looking at both options, the Whately and the Deerfield site. And what we can do is come up with a rough order of magnitude of, what is the value of this building per square foot? What does each square foot cost? Is it $800 a square foot, $900 a square foot? Like we can start to give context again to, if you scale the building down, this is how much you're saving, so you can start to understand what your trade-offs are, how and what you're getting for what you're giving up, if that makes sense in terms of cost. So we can get to that point as we work through the process here.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I think I have my marching orders. Was there any other questions or concerns about anything you saw today?
Joyce, do you have anything?
Oh, sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my camera. No, it's, I think the question of whether the Deerfield options have ball fields or no ball fields is really, that Deerfield should decide which
Yeah.
of those, a variety of things to move forward with.
Yeah.
In Whately, I think if we do the layout in what you're suggesting here, and it turns out that it's changing the shape of the building slightly in the end, I don't think it's going to change the cost very much.
No.
Right.
So for the purpose of this exercise, I think what you lay out for this will be very similar or the same as whatever might ultimately be built there.
You hit the nail on the head on that one. Yep, 100%. We're in the ballpark, which is where we need to be at this point. So
Yeah.
It's very good.
okay, thanks
All
for your
right,
time,
great.
everybody. Do we all want to maybe put on our calendars, or would 2 weeks same time from today, or I know after 5 probably works better for you, Trevor, it sounds like. So do we want to try to keep following meetings after 5? Does that work?
Yeah, let's see. Just see what.
I
That's the
lied.
10th.
I can't actually do the 10th. I'm sorry, but any day that week we could do after 5. I'm okay with.
Could do the 9th. I could do the 12th.
12 better for me.
12th is better
12th
for
is
you?
better?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that Thursday.
yep.
Let me go check. 12 is probably,
It's a
Uh,
Thursday.
yeah, 12th is probably fine for me as well. Let's see, there is something on there.
Doug
that goes
got
to-
bounced from the meeting.
Okay.
I guess he lost power. He texted me they lost power. They must be going through some stuff over there. So let me just confirm that with him, but I'll use that as my starting point, knowing that in the future we should be meeting after 5. It sounds like it works better for everybody anyways.
You know, one
Right.
thing, are we getting the PDFs of the presentation?
You
Yeah,
should
oh,
have
yeah.
it in,
All
you
right.
should have it in your inbox, Dan.
All right, very good. I'll take a look. I'll take it off, look offline. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay. Yeah, I actually technically got something at 5 on Thursday, but I think I can leave that early. I can attend the first hour and not the second hour of that thing.
The only comment that I have for for BOO members is, I need to meet with you at some point, whether it's that week or the week before, because I've got to get Sunderland our budget by the 16th, and I have most of it done, but there's a couple of questions that I have that I wanted to discuss as a group. So I don't know if you wanna do next week, or if you just wanna, I mean, if you can't do the second hour on the 12th, I just wanna see where we're at. I mean, not, yeah, because this week's Thanksgiving and next week is, so Trevor can do the 9th, but Dan.
No, I can do the
Or
12th.
12th.
I can do either,
But you have something after this at 6, Joyce, on Thursday, the 12th?
I have something that nominally goes 4 to 6, but I can probably get away with just being for the 4 to 5 part and then
Do you
jumping
want to
up
do
meeting at
you want to do
5 to 6.
later on Thursday would actually work better for me? Is later okay, or is that
Oh,
still-
later is fine
Yeah,
too.
later's
Sure.
fine with me. I
Okay.
just.
let's start at 6 or something, or?
6
Yeah, that
o'clock
would
is
work. That would
just
work
as
great.
long as the BOO is aware that I just need to talk about budget stuff for a little bit.
Yep.
And I'll send it to you ahead of time, but I
Okay.
just wanna.
Okay.
Sure.
And
Oh.
so the
Okay.
BOO will have, so we should probably think of that as an hour and a half meeting. The
Sure.
hour, the design team probably, and a half
Sure.
hour with the budget.
Half hour, 45 minutes, longest for my end.
Great.
Okay. All right.
So do you want, so tentatively 6 o'clock on the 12th?
Okay.
Yeah,
And
That
do you
sounds
want to
great.
do the budget stuff first, or you're gonna do it after our stuff?
we can
I
do
can
it
do it
after.
after.
Yeah, we can do it after.
Okay.
Let's do it
Yeah.
after.
Okay.
Whatever works for you. I mean, if you'd rather a little later, it's up to you.
No, 6 is good for me. I just didn't, if you guys are talking budget stuff, I was gonna show up a little bit late to the meeting.
No, yeah, we can get you guys done first.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for the time. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, we have public comment.
Real quick. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's hear it.
You know,
Can I share
yeah.
my screen?
Yeah,
I can share my screen, beautiful. So I was watching I'm Julie Chalfant, I'm the chair of the finance committee in Deerfield.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. So I was listening to one of the previous meetings and Joyce, you asked what the cost impact would be, and I can email this to you guys. I have
Right.
printouts here, but if you start up in this top right-hand corner and you guess at whatever the loan amount is, so if it's 10 million, did I do the right? Yeah, if it's 10 million, you pick the number of years that you want to pay it back, you pick the interest rate, and it gives you what your annual payment is gonna be for that.
Yeah,
So say you get, a $5 million grant, and it's only $5 million, whatever it is, you type whatever number you
Right.
want in there.
thanks, Julie.
Deerfield, Whately, and Sunderland assessed values are right here.
right.
Here's your average single-family home price in each of those towns. This is as of FY 2024,
Okay,
Okay,
good.
right?
Current.
So last year.
Yeah,
Here's your tax rate. If you say that, I think you have it arranged that Deerfield pays 50% of
Yes.
everything and the other two split 25-25. So if you do that to the price of this building, then here is this line right here, 9, is your average single family increase. For your
Annually?
average single family house annually, so it'd be $137 per average single family home. If you scroll down here, you can see like, if my house is $350,000, this is what my increase would be.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Then I also put in over here, if instead of doing 50-25-25, I say that all 3 towns are gonna have the same increase in their home value.
yeah,
Then that would be. The same tax increase, so
Gotcha.
it would be 34 mils,
mhm,
right?
yeah,
Then for your average single family home, because the average single family home is a different price in each town.
Yeah.
That gives you this line 11. And then down
Okay.
here, you can see here's the, this column F gives you your estimated actual tax bill impact for the different values of houses.
right.
So I will email this to everybody.
Thank you for putting this.
Yeah.
together. Really
And then you
helpful.
guys can play with it and put in, whatever values you come up with, and
Yeah.
that'll help you think about how much it's gonna cost.
Mhm.
It's
So
not as expensive
Right.
as, what
Okay.
other. Cause I think
I'm gonna
Jeff,
run off to another meeting, but Julie, thank you for this and emailing it. I might email you some questions because I think I understand it, but often I find once I look at it, I have questions. If that's okay with you, I've got to run off to the my select board meeting.
Oh, thank you, Joyce. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor, Trevor,
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Dan, are you still there? I see Dan's box, but I don't see Dan there. Well, I will vote aye.
Great,
Joyce
that's a-
Fortune, aye. Dan.
Aye. Dan
Okay,
Murphy.
we are adjourned. And I'm
Alright,
gonna
thank
go
you.
since I have to run to another meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, that's a great choice.